Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. I'm joined by Pete Mohan, Eric Pond, and Brian Henry. And just last night, Marquette got an 83-61 victory over Xavier in Milwaukee on National Marquette Day.
Praise the Lord!
So many storylines coming out of this game. So quick off the top, we wanted to give you an overview of what those storylines are. Pete Mohan, I know you took copious amounts of notes last night. What were some of the big picture things that you saw last night?
Well, I'll tell you, I was had just driven back from Universal Orlando, got home at about 1:30 in the morning. So I flipped on the game at 1:30, started watching. The first thing, the Fresno State and New Mexico game went like 20 minutes into our game. So when the Marquette game finally came on, it was 19-2. And I was like, what the hell just happened? 19-2 against Xavier. I mean, all right. That was pretty
crazy run. Lots of threes.
Yeah, you're right. The threes really got us going there in the beginning. Throughout the game, I mean, there was just so much to take note of and so much to talk about. It was a crazy game in many respects. But the first thing I want to mention is no Juwan in this game. Begs the question, was he suspended for the game or what was he? He didn't play a minute in a game where we had terrible foul trouble.
He gone.
Xavier did not have Blewett or Sumner. Bernard got hurt in the game, and Rasheed Gaston got ejected for a little bump with Dwayne later in the second half, so they were certainly shorthanded. Game was sold out for the first time since Wisconsin, which is great to see. National Marquette Day.
And it was the biggest crowd this season at the Bradley Center, just over 19,000, I think.
Since I was watching the game on mute, since Doug Gottlieb was commentating, along with Carter Blackburn, I didn't get to hear the level of volume of the stadium, but I'm sure with the way we played, it was awesome. To keep it going, we led 31-10 after we expanded that 19-2 lead. And then Xavier really started coming back. They had a couple timeouts. They went on a 7-0 run to cut the lead to 14. Uncle Mo was a little bit on their side. Call a timeout. Come out of the timeout. Call a Matt Helt post-up play. He sinks a baby hook on the baseline to kill Xavier's 7-0 run. Now, just think about that for a second.
I've thought about it.
Matt Helt is our run killer.
I've thought about it, and my brain does not process it. Wojo, more Matt Helt post-ups. We need it. Make it happen.
Literally from the beginning of the game, you hit on a bunch of them right there, at least through kind of the early part of the second half. One of the biggest things in this game was the change in starting lineup. We had Andrew Rousey, we had Matt Helt, and we had Dwayne Wilson get into the starting lineup, and three guys, Luke Fisher, Juwan Johnson, and Hanif Cheatham find the bench in their stead. And Wojo gave those three who started in their place major props for bringing intensity and a bunch of other intangibles into the game. And I thought it seemed to make a difference, Brian Henry, but I'm wondering if you think that it actually made a difference and if it's something that can be sustained over the long term.
I don't think it can be sustained over the long term, but there's no question it was a go F yourself lineup. That was a coach that is extremely frustrated with how his team has played and said, the heck with it. I can almost guarantee that their week of practice was whoever plays the best in practice is rolled out there. Those guys worked their butts off. He threw them in the lineup, and he played them the minutes they deserved. I cannot believe, staring at that box score, we won a game where Luke Fisher played 12 minutes and Matt Helt played 24. I mean, it is shocking, on top of the fact that going into the season, our quote-unquote best overall player, Juwan Johnson, on both ends, didn't step on the floor going into the season.
Best overall player, Juwan Johnson?
Going into the season on both ends of the floor, that was our discussion point. He was our leading scorer and our best guard, best defending guard.
I'm pretty sure you said that Hanif Cheatham was going to continue to establish himself as our best all-around player. I'm going to find that in the pod. And
you can find it was first one. If I remember what I said, and I said he was going to have a breakout big season. I didn't say he was our best player coming into the point being this box scores ass backwards, and they somehow won a game. Doesn't make any sense.
Wojo literally said, I think, in the presser that he spent the week trying to find guys who would come out and fight for the program. Crazy that Luke, Juwan, and Hanif were sort of, on the other end of that from Wojo and Sat. I mean, the Juwan thing is nuts. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes and if there's more to it than what Eric, he sort of led into. But
Eric, I think you listened to it last week when we were fortunate to have Dan Fitzgerald join us. Mike, I think you remember this. He kind of very casually snuck in that Luke Fisher, he's just not that aggressive, and that's how he plays, and then continued on to another
Which isn't
point.
A secret.
No, it's not a secret, but it's interesting to watch a former player and guy that knows to watch and assess it that blatantly.
We've said this about Matt Helt since the beginning of the season. He, there's a line for him talent-wise, and he may not be able to cross that, but he gives you max effort. He's not always going to make the best play, but kind of from the beginning of the game, what did he have? He had 9 rebounds total, and he had, I think, 6 pretty early on. He had a sweet little baby hook, which Mohan was talking about. So what did you see from Matt Helt in the early going? Is it just right position and just more want to?
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to assess it. Helt seems to have more energy. He seems to be a little bit more maybe dialed in at times. The story of the game for him is career high 9 rebounds.
Career high, wow.
No, you already pointed out the story is post up, baby hook on the baseline.
To kill a run.
There. That's the story. That is the story.
Fisher did have foul trouble too.
Yeah, but Helt ultimately had foul trouble as well.
The reason we keep talking about that baby hook is because it looked so natural. It looked like
we played a lot of games this season. We haven't seen that yet, so that was just stunning.
No, I know, but that's what's so shocking. Like, it looked like it was less awkward than I anticipated it would have been.
Well, it's not like they don't let him shoot that shot in drills. So I'm sure he's at least tried it before.
See it in the game is a different story. Yeah, I'm sure he's tried.
Whether or not a coach allows Matt Helt to pull the trigger is the other story. I want to hit a couple more of these bullet points real quick. Have we ever given up that many dunks in a game and still won by 20-plus points? I mean, they just absolutely feasted on us. We talk about Helt, but there was definitely points in this game where our interior defense was extremely soft, and our ability to guard the pick and roll near the basket was terrible. They had a bunch of easy dunks, and then on top of that, we probably had around 10 and ones that we allowed them to have. They just devoured us from the inside, but they couldn't hit a 3 to save their life. They were 2 for 17 shooting threes. I mean, that's not their game.
You meant, talking about the dunks, this is the lowest we have held a Big East team who isn't named DePaul in scoring all year. So I wonder how many of those dunks were just the play of the game, the style of the game, that we let it get out of, that it was kind of more an up and down the court, freewheeling type of game instead of a locked-in type of game, which I would think allows for more open dunks and more open cuts. Now, it's not to defend the fact that we can't defend very well. We're still pretty abysmal. But I'm just trying to fish out exactly why some of that happened.
I think we need to give ups to the team for their defensive performance last night. I think you're right, Mike. I mean, we held, I think, DePaul to 58 a few weeks ago. This was the second best defensive performance in conference play this year for us. We held Xavier to 2 of 17 from three-point range, which is some of them and some of us.
Forced 14 turnovers.
Yep. Wow. I think 6 steals, 6 blocks, and forced 14 turnovers. It was a solid defensive performance.
I mean, when you look at the box score, it was. I'm just saying, from when I watched it, it looked like Xavier was not engaged at all from the beginning, obviously. No desire to work offensively, and I don't know how much of that was because Blewett and Sumner are both out, and they're their primary offensive reason.
That's a huge part of why they look that way.
Yeah, exactly.
And props to Marquette for taking advantage of it. And look, it doesn't make any sense that we're bound to get there. I mean, goodness gracious, Markus Howard. I mean, the roller coaster we've been on with him this season, he's looked so good for stretches. He's looked like a freshman at times. Yesterday was special to hit 9 3-pointers. But I will say, there's no reason, I was telling Mike this before we hopped on, how he was able to get shots off after the 5th or 6th one, and he still was getting wide open looks. I mean, you're absolutely, Xavier just felt like they waved the white flag in the second half and just went, it's not our day. Like, all right, that's what it looked like. Marcus kept getting open looks. That's why he's got 9 threes. That was horrible on-ball defense by Xavier. But, hey, we'll take it, and we needed a win like that to pull us out of the rut we were in.
Well, I thought the dynamic of the game was interesting, where it would seem like Well, obviously we got off to the huge start in the beginning. We kind of scuffle around for a little bit. Xavier would make a run, cut it to around 10, and that's where we would halt it. And I think that is the major storyline for me, is learning to play with a lead, not letting that team feel like they can get it under double digits. And we hit big shots when it mattered so that Xavier couldn't get on that 15-0 run or whatever to get the game into a reasonably close distance. We kept him at bay, kept the lead in double digits, and for not having Fisher and Juwan in the game for a lot of it, there's a lot of poise by the young players to really keep Xavier from gaining any momentum to get back in it.
I just want to say one more thing about Markus Howard, because I think we need to gush about him as much as possible. You're right, he did have a stretch there over the past number of games where he did some things that we've already come to think of uncharacteristic of Markus. Turnovers in the backcourt that just didn't seem like how he had started the season off. But you know what excites me most, and this isn't something we didn't necessarily know before. National Marquette Day, biggest crowd of the season, one of the biggest games of the season in terms of getting us headed in the right direction. And Markus Howard, I'm not going to say how old he is, but Markus Howard, young kid, stepped up in a huge way in the moment, in a big moment. We already knew he was a gamer, but this is further proof. So that's the thing. 34, great. 25, great. He stepped up in a huge moment and carried his team. He carried his team when he was hot, right? Yep. And that's the exciting part.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews.
I think some of that might also be indicative of how Markus responds to coaching, because
True.
Big week, big off week, a lot of adjustments. Clearly, Wojo lit these guys up.
That's a great point.
Through the week, Markus took it and responded. I think that's a huge sign for the future for Markus.
And I think Hanif Cheatham responded as well, right? 15 points. He probably had one of his better games.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think he put up 8 boards to go along with those 15 points coming off the bench. He responded as well. Important signs here.
I just want to talk about Hanif real quick. We've maybe said that he's been lost this season a little bit and not found his groove. You mentioned he had a better game. He had 8 rebounds. I think that speaks to something that I thought that we did well was, and I don't know if this was from film, that Xavier sends their bigs to the boards and sends their guards back, but it looked like we were purposefully tipping rebounds by our bigs out to our guards to get our guards involved in the rebounding. I don't know if that is personnel, that maybe Matt Helt just can't jump high enough to grab the rebound, so they say just tip it out or what it is. But our guards really contributed, and Hanif was part of that. However, he did have four turnovers. For me, his ability to finish at the rack and get to the free throw line is the key to him turning his game around, and that's what he did well. And you know what he didn't do at all? Was any of those bullshit spin moves where he gets himself up in the air and throws it away.
I like those spin moves when they work.
Well, I think that was the thing that stood out most to me is with Juwan not playing and Cheatham refining his game a little bit, there was no bad spin move turnovers in this game. It was because we averaged 5 of those coming into this.
So with all of that said, the question of the weekend is this. Are they rolling this lineup back out on Tuesday night against St. John's, a team that blitzed us early in the season? Mike, what do you think?
Well, I think they will.
It's a serious question.
I know. I was just laughing because we talked about this, and you're prepared to answer it, so I know why you're posing it. No, I think it's absolutely the right question. I think they do, because I think that when you get a win like they got, even though it was against the short-handed Xavier team, I think that's at least the starting lineup you roll out. I don't know if you keep them out there for long. I think you're going to have to see how it goes. But the energy that they played with, the word camaraderie has been thrown around with that lineup that they've seen over the past week. I don't know why the hell it took them this long into the season to realize that, but they finally realized it.
Hang on. We really I want to go around and get everybody's thoughts, but we really think Matt Helt, now granted I know foul trouble to do with it, but seeing a box score where he's playing twice the minutes of Fisher, we're winning most games. Don't get me wrong, I'm as frustrated with Luke as anybody, but that cannot be a formula going forward.
Your question.
Okay, let's be real. Luke is the better player than Helt.
Okay,
Helt is just more assertive and willing to get after it than.
Yeah, and your question wasn't about going forward. It was against St. John.
Right.
And I said St. John's that yes.
That's fair. Pond?
If spirit and fight is the problem, and that's what Wojo identified and has been widely reported on,
including by the Real Chili podcast from the beginning of the season.
Yeah, that's capital J journalism right there. We we need to roll with a lineup that gives us spirit and fight. And that right now is Helt. That's not Fisher. I think we roll this lineup, out on Tuesday.
Just to offer to everybody, in the last time we played St. John's, their starting lineup went 6-7, 6-7, 6-6, 6-2, 6-1. So can you play Rousey and Howard next to each other against that lineup? Yes. And I think you can get away with the rest of it and match up okay. We'll see. I think St. John's will lick their chops a little bit, but that's a team we should beat. And I'd be very, and if it turns into 2 games, there's no reason it doesn't turn into 3, right? I mean, this is a real turning point of the year and could be a defining moment for them going forward. That wasn't just a test balloon lineup. They kicked ass in it, and I think that's what they're probably. I agree with you, Mike. I think he's going to roll it back out there. I'm not 100% sure if it gets us to the tournament or not. Maybe I got to see it one more game.
The jury's out on whether it gets us to the tournament, but exactly like Eric said, what we've been lacking all season for the most part is that extra gear, and if that lineup, even in short spurts, can get us that extra gear, I'm all for it.
Maybe we're reading a little bit, too much into this, but this is about tone setting for the program for Wojo too. I mean, this has implications into the future. This is how Wojo is going to run his program and what he demands from his players, and some of that's intangibles. Like, it's about St. John's, but at the same time, it's about Wojo running this program into the future, and that's
the beauty of the regular season too. Is you can get your young guys some run in certain situations like this. Oh, three game losing streak. All right, well, let's develop these kids some because they're earning it in practice, and hey, they need developmental time too.
Let's pivot then to, I think, the most important question coming off of what we just said, and that's looking at the schedule. There are 4 games left. It's St. John's, at Providence, at Xavier, Creighton. Does running the table make this a lock NCAA tournament team? Because I look at those 4, and I say those are all games they're good enough to win and can win. I don't know if they will, but I don't think Creighton scares anybody. I don't think Xavier scares everybody a ton. Providence will be tough, and St. John's has already beaten us earlier this year. So, hell, they could lose all 4 of them for all we know. I'm curious to go around. Can we do it? And does it make us a strong NCAA? Does it make us a lock NCAA tournament team?
I'm going to be take the homer, approach here, but yes and yes. I think we can do it, and yes, I think it makes us a lock. I think we're pretty squarely on the bubble here. I think the team is as enigmatic and confusing as any we've really seen this year in college basketball. At the same time, this is a shooter's team. Like this team, when we're hot, we're great. When we're not, we can lose any game. I mean, it's just like watching the Warriors on an off night. It's reliant on shooting the basketball well, and we can lose any game, just like Ryan just said.
Well, for me, I think we're in really good shape right now, just from the eye test alone. The committee is going to look at that Villanova win and say, maybe that's one of the best wins in the entire country, and it's not a fluke. We've had other good wins. We won at Creighton. We beat Xavier.
We won at Georgia. Good win.
Won at Georgia. It's a good win. Honestly, I think that we could go 2-2. If we beat St. John's and Providence, I think that we could lose to Xavier and Creighton and get a win in the Big East tournament and still make the NCAA tournament. Just because we have those really, really good wins. We have a marketable star in Markus Howard, and the fact that we're a 3-point shooting threat that could go off against anyone at any time. And I think the committee looks positively on those aspects. That's the team. They want that mercurial team that could knock off a Kansas but could also lose to anybody,
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think kind of looking at the last 4 games, St. John's, Providence, Xavier, and then finishing up at home versus Creighton, I think we need to get one of those road wins against Providence or against Xavier. That would make me feel a hell of a lot better. Obviously, we can't tank. We can't go 1-3 or lose those 4. I do worry, though, Mohan, in the suggestion you laid out of losing the last 2. I don't love that and where the team's head would be at heading into the Big East tournament. Of course, it depends on who we get matched up against, right? Mm-hmm. But I think we're. What do people always talk about when it comes tournament time? You want to be peaking at the right time. It feels like, for after last night, with 4 games left, we could being the emphasis, could be heading in a direction that we are peaking come the tournament time. And I think that's really exciting.
Tuesday will be very telling in that sense against the team that we should handle at home in St. John's, but again, has already beaten us this year. Just to offer some context to everybody, if you don't have it in front of you, Marquette currently sits at 5th in the conference. We're 7-7 in the league, 16-10 overall. 4 more wins, 20-10 is an NCAA tournament team out of this conference. Like, no question, no bones about it. And we spent a lot of time on this, fellas, early in the season in our preview pods. This league will get 5 teams in the tournament more than likely. They're sitting in that spot right now. Seton Hall 6-8, Providence is 6-8. That Providence game is going to be massive, but if they do the work around it, the path is there to be an 8 seed or better in the tournament with 3 probably. I don't think 2-2, and this is a weak bubble team in the Final Four. I think it's got to be 3-1, and 4-0 gives them a really, really strong position.
And 3rd place is not out of the realm of possibility in the Big East.
No, it is not.
And even technically, 2nd place is still up for grabs, I believe.
With games against Xavier and Creighton, right? Yeah.
Well, Xavier and Creighton, obviously, but even Butler is only 2 games ahead of us with 4 games to play. I mean, anything really could happen.
Yep. No.
In Joe Lenardi's most recent bracketology from February 16th, he had Marquette as an 11 seed playing in Indianapolis.
He's usually lagging, though, isn't he? Isn't he kind of like behind by a few days?
So
usually?
He's been publishing every 3 days, which means he's due for a new one today, Sunday, February 19th. So I think there should be an uptick. I think we've been floating around that 8, 9, 11 to maybe a little bit lower depending on the streak. So given the fact that we're at 11, even though if he's lagging, that ranking in his mind should still encompass the 1-4 stretch we went on. So if 11 is our floor and we can put together a 2-2 stretch or a 3-1 stretch here, I like our chances.
The big thing is going to be we all need to pay very close attention to Seton Hall and Providence. That's who we're competing with right now for that 5th spot in the conference. Yep. They're both 6-8. We got a head-to-head game with Providence. Pay attention to what their scores are going to be going forward, and those are the resumes. Granted, it's not you compete obviously nationally for that, but if this league's getting 5 teams, you got to finish the year at least at 19 wins going into the Big East tournament. You got to have a better record than those 2.
I was just Googling bracketology and stuff. Stumbled across an article from iSportsWeb.com, which I don't know how legit that is.
I love iSportsWeb.
Sounds official.
The deep web right there.
This is sports fake news territory here. But the title of the article is "Which Bubble Teams Can Make a Deep NCAA Tournament Run?" Number 1, Marquette.
Oh, jeez. That immediately invalidates its
So suck on that.
I would also just encourage our listenership here to check out the Sports Illustrated article that just posted last night after the win, which is really all about the situation we currently find ourselves in as the bubbliest team in the land, it says.
I would agree that we are the bubbliest.
Well, we're the bubbliest podcast, obviously. Be Henry.
We did ask for Twitter questions before we recorded. We got here's a question for you. This is someone we didn't talk a ton about. Dwayne Wilson. Pete Mohan, how do we measure Dwayne Wilson's impact on this team?
Well, as the listeners of the show might know, I've been on the Dwayne bandwagon for some time. I just think that he probably has the highest basketball IQ on this team at this point in time. You're right, he makes the smart passes. He's one of our best at feeding the post, actually, which is something that we certainly struggle at.
Thank you for saying that.
That's something that we need all the time on the court. But for me, it's his defensive presence and his savvy in terms of getting in passing lanes or moving his feet and really agitating a guy on the ball. Where Juwan, he's our best passing lane defender, but Dwayne kind of does it all. on defense, and he can guard multiple positions. The only thing for me was Dwayne, his shot is kind of off all year. And I mean, we kind of talked about it last year too, but he's getting open looks and he's just not cashing in on them. And free throw shooting, he's not necessarily cashing in either. So what can we do to get Dwayne's shot going? Because he's not a bad shooter. I mean, this dude was like a record-setting shooter in high school. He's got a stroke.
So we don't have enough time for everybody to go around and answer that question, but let's do final predictions here, and then I'm going to throw one other extra thing in there. So I want you to give your prediction for St. John's coming up on Tuesday, and then also answer the simple question. Can this team string together several games in a row with high effort and unselfish play like they exhibited last night? Eric Pond, I'm going to throw it to you first.
I think we beat St. John's on Tuesday. That's my prediction. And yeah, I think we need to string together a 2-2 or 3-1 or 4-0 streak to round out the season here. And I think that's fully dependent on effort, energy, fight, camaraderie. I think if we don't see that, it's a really bad sign. If we don't see some of those intangibles that we just saw last night against Xavier, we're in deeper trouble than our record might indicate.
Pete Mohan.
From an effort standpoint, it's up to the coaching staff and the players, to get each other into the game. For me, I don't think that it's necessarily as much mental in terms of preparation as it is just being tied to our three-point performance. If we're stroking it, we're giving effort, We're just that emotional of a team, and anytime when you rely on your three-point shot as much as Marquette does, you're going to be a fly-by-night team like that. If this team is stroking it from three, they could beat anyone. We beat Villanova, and we could beat Xavier by 20-plus points, and it's all about whether or not we're hitting our shots. So as far as St. John's is concerned, I think that with the home crowd, I think we're hitting our shots again. I think we come away with a fairly easy win, maybe 12 points, and look forward to finishing off a nice little easy kind of stretch here down the gauntlet.
Brian Henry.
Answering question number 1, can we give effort? Sure. Will we? Track record says no, so I'm going to lean on what I've seen from this team in the past and say no. When it comes to Tuesday against St. John's, I think we win a dogfight. It'll be close, and I am going to jump in on your last thing to Mohan. I am perfectly okay with Dwayne taking Juwan's minutes. Only thing I wanted to say.
So in terms of great effort and unselfish play, it feels like this team has finally got the effort thing figured out. I think they can put it together for multiple games. I agree, Brian, with what you said, that they haven't done it before. So let's see if they can do it. I think they will. I also think it'll be a win against St. John's. I think it'll be in the 6-point range. And hopefully we can get another good crowd to the BMO Harris Bradley Center, building off the record crowd that we had just the other day on National Marquette Day.
That can't be overlooked as to how much that crowd helped them in that game.
Yeah. You saw pictures before the game, and there were people all the way up in the upper bowl already before tip. So
this is the true test of our fanship. Who comes out on a Tuesday night versus St. John's?
I'm going to bet you it's under 15.
Jeez. All right, folks, that's going to do it. That's good. We got through.
It will be.
All right, ring out Ahoya.
We're not there yet.
We got through an episode without anybody saying they are who they are. So that's a victory for this podcast.
I can do it if you want me to.
No, don't do it.
We aren't who we aren't.
How old is Markus Howard? I think we need to...
Oh, no, I forgot. I don't know. We'll have to do some research on that.
Wait, can we say 3-point party one time?
Oh, yeah.
Can we all go around the circle and yell 3-point party?
That's been said enough. We can't.
Yeah. Let's not repeat that.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for this episode of the Real Chili Podcast. We'll be back soon as Marquette inches closer and closer to tournament contention. 4 more games left in the season. Get to the BMO Harris Bradley Center. Get loud. Let's get this team to the tournament and have a fun March. Signing off for Brian Henry, Eric Pond, and Pete Mohan, I'm Mike Lavender. We'll talk to you next time.